Clarity on Fire, a podcast for people who know what they don't want out of their life and career, but aren't sure what they'd rather be doing.
In a world where it's easy to exist, but hard to feel alive, we, Kristen
and Rachel,
two certified life and career coaches, are here to help you cut through the information overload, get unstuck, and focus not just on how you can have a career you're passionate about, but how to create a whole life that feels fulfilling.
So join us here, where we serve up inspiration and down-to-earth wisdom in a way that only two best friends can.
We want you to experience the relief of knowing that, yes, you're allowed to want more out of your life and career.
And no, you don't have to wander through the dark anymore. Our job is to light the fire that shows you the way. Let's go.
Hey. Okay, you can see us. And if you're watching on YouTube, you're like, duh. And if you're listening on the podcast, you're like,
where?
Where?
On YouTube.
The answer is on YouTube. Once a month, we do side chats, and they are both video and audio instead of just audio, which is what we do every other time. So,
if you like looking at our faces while we talk to you, come on over to YouTube.
I mean, it really is. Could it be more riveting? No, probably you're fine wherever platform you're listening to. I'm just giving you the option. So, okay, before we get into this month's side chat topic, which is sort of a very much requested topic, at least, I mean, people have asked me a lot about this, and clients this just keeps coming up over and over and over again. So it was time we actually had a full-length conversation about it. But first, want to remind you, we'll remind you again at the end, but today is the last day to sign up to talk to one of us about the possibility of one-on-one coaching.
Because we are not just taking clients willy-nilly throughout the year anymore. We are doing it on a more enrollment basis.
I am neither willy nor nilly anymore.
No more willy, no more nilly. Only at certain times of year.
Down to business, and that's it.
So this is one of our open enrollment periods for clients. And today's the last day to fill out a form.
Yep.
So if you are listening to this after Friday the 21st and you're interested in coaching, that's okay. Go join our wait list, and we will let you know when a spot opens up over the next few weeks or months.
We're taking on about 20 new clients right now. We won't be doing this again probably for many months. We don't know yet, because part of it's going to depend on how many people, and part of it's going to depend on the things that we roll out in the coming months, because there's other changes that we're not ready to totally talk about yet, but we're going to be rolling out. So all of that is to say, I don't know when we're going to do this again. It may not be for another 5-ish months or more. I don't know. We are also, because mamas need a raise. I mean, we just deserve it after all this time, right?
It's been a long time.
It's been many years
since we raised our coaching prices.
Since we've raised our rates. So we're going to be doing that probably in late 2019, early 2020. So for multiple reasons, this is a good time to talk to us about the possibility of one-on-one coaching. Keep in mind, talking to us does not mean
you're committed.
You're 100% committed. I want to talk to people who are serious. I don't want to talk to people who are like, maybe, if you're maybe, like, wait until you're more serious. Or get on the wait list, even though I don't want semi-serious people on the wait list either. Like, you got to be kind of serious no matter what your intention, okay? But, where was I going with that? See? I get so adamant about making my point that I lose my point.
Well, I think you're just saying that we can't promise when we're going to be coming back with more coaching
That should have been
spots.
obvious. That's where I was going with that.
One more thing we want to add in here is that anyone who fills out a form by today and talks to us about one-on-one coaching and then becomes a client is also going to get free access to our upcoming course that's going to be about overcoming your people pleasing. It's coming out later this summer, but if you're a client, you're going to get it automatically. Yeah. So one more reason why now's a good time. You get a free course, you get our current coaching rates before they go up again, and you also get a spot before we don't have any more guaranteed spots for who knows how long.
I'll also say that if you're only interested in the upcoming people-pleasing course, that's cool. We have a VIP list where you can add your name and be sure to get alerted when we're ready to share more info, which we are not quite ready to do. But in the coming weeks and month or two, yes, we will be talking more about our new, and it's going to be short and it's going to be affordable people-pleasing course. So all of the information for everything we just said is in the episode description. If you're on YouTube, obviously that's below. If you're on the podcast, you should be able to figure that out by now. Know where that is. And talk to one of us about coaching if you're serious. And I think where I was going with that was that Kristen and I are not here to convince anyone to do coaching.
No.
Like, that's not what these calls are about. They're just about making sure that it's a good fit all around, getting you really clear on what our process is, and making sure that it's the right thing for both of us. And if you want to hear us talk a little bit more about the process of coaching, we did a really good job, not this past Tuesday, but the Tuesday before that. So I think it was June 11th, our Tuesday episode, which was it was supposed to be a blog, but it wasn't. It was just called 2 Big Announcements from Us. You should go listen to that episode, which I will link to as well.
We give a much more thorough description of the one-on-one coaching enrollment period and also the people-pleasing course that is coming up.
So anyway, today's the last day to decide to take advantage of coaching with us now, or at least talk to us about it. If not, if you find this later, add your name to the wait list. And if we have a spot, which we will have randomly opening up, we just can't guarantee when, we will then contact you in the order that you're on the list. So, okay. All
on
of that
to today's
aside,
topic.
Okay, yes, we're talking about honing your intuition and knowing the difference between your intuition and fear, which is something that
that's a question we get
pretty much everyone struggles with. Yes. So the first question I want to pose to us in this conversation is, how do we define intuition? How would we choose to describe that to people so that we're all on the same page from the beginning?
Yes. I would say your intuition is the internal voice that is guiding you to the right next step for you, even if it doesn't always make logical sense. You might connect your intuition to some sort of a higher power. Mm-hmm. You might just connect it to your inner wise self, but it's the part of you that has a big picture, bird's eye view of what's really going on and is leading you step by step down what is going to be the best outcome for you, even if in the meantime it doesn't always look that way. Mm-hmm. How would you define it?
I mean, that's kind of wordy, but yeah.
It's not what you would find in the dictionary, but it's my thought process.
It's what your gut knows to be true. It's what your heart knows to be true. It is not what your mind knows to be true.
Yep.
The intuition doesn't live in the mind, and we'll talk about that more later. But I think all of us understand what intuition is. I think that we would each define it a little bit differently. But to me, it's just your inner source of knowing without even realizing how you know it. It's more of a feeling, to be honest, than it is a mental knowing of something.
Well, that's why it's called a gut feeling.
Right.
It's not called a logical thought process, because often it's not in your brain, it's in your body. And we're going to talk about how to access that in a little bit too.
Of course, here's the thing. Intuition is something that I think at one time was more valued. Like, historically speaking, hundreds of years ago, when we placed a little bit more importance on, I mean, I don't know. I could get into the historical details of why everything I'm about to say is also not true. But I think that we had, at some point in humanity, more of a respect for the unknown and maybe more of a reverence for it.
I would agree.
And so I think that the more that we got away from that, the more we got toward using our mental processes to figure everything out. You know, we built a whole culture around the scientific method, which absolutely doesn't use intuition as a form of, that's not a form of acceptable evidence.
No.
Right?
You can't go into a lab and say, my gut instinct is that this hypothesis will be true.
So I'm guessing
and be taken seriously.
A lot of scientists are intuitively being called to explore certain things without even really realizing that that's what's happening.
Oh, sure. But then they have to back it up with
But
science.
they have to back it up with evidence, which is not a bad thing. I'm not saying we should be a society that's totally just based on, well, my gut says this. But ideally, the place we want to get as humans is we make decisions from a place of holistic, like balanced, between, like I'm doing a triangle for people who can't watch us right now, but between intuition, feelings, and logic. Feelings are a little bit different than intuition. I guess I should maybe talk about that for a second. Didn't plan on talking about this, but I think it is, like, your intuition can speak to you through your feelings, I believe.
Sure.
But I see feelings as more kind of you're in the moment experience of life, like your ups and downs, how you're responding. I've heard it said, and I think Joanna Platt talked about this in the emotional constipation episode we did last year, about how your emotions, like your daily kind of ups and downs, how you're responding to life, that's like weather, and your feelings are more of the atmosphere that doesn't change, right? So like I think your intuition can often speak to you in the form of deeper feelings, which don't shift as often. Whereas your daily emotions, that's kind of up and down, up and down, up and down. If that makes sense.
When you're flying, you can be flying above the clouds, sometimes even above
you're
the
above
rain,
weather,
and it's still blue skies
right
up there, even when it's raining down below.
Yeah,
because there's a constancy there. That's more of your intuition.
Yeah, that's more of an intuitive knowing, right?
Yeah,
like it's permanent, it's fixed, and the stuff that's going on underneath is more of a day-to-day changeability, which is normal for humans. So, okay, but here's the thing. For myriad reasons we don't need to get into, because I'm sure we could each come up with
countless.
A bunch. Intuition is devalued in our culture. Can't prove it. You know, you can't tell anyone who doesn't believe in having an intuition that, oh, I made this decision because my gut told me to, because then they'll just make fun of you, right? Which is
or they'll ask a lot of questions and get your brain going and get you overthinking your own intuition.
Can't back it up because you don't know how to explain how you know what you know or why you did what you did. You just knew, or you just did. So for whatever reason, most of us are overly developed when it comes to our logic muscle. So I like to think of this as a person who's been pumping one bicep, like curling one bicep over and over and over, and they've got one giant bicep and one like teeny little atrophied muscle. That's your intuition. And as long as you're over pumping the mental muscle, you're
completely out of whack.
You're completely not balanced, and you're completely ignoring your intuitive muscle. So much of what we're going to talk about today is about how to turn down to switch metaphors, to turn down the volume on how much space you're giving your mental processes so that you can turn up the volume on different ways to start listening to your intuition, because your intuition is always speaking to you. This is a big misconception, right?
There's this constant flow of communication, but what our logical brain tends to do is throw up this barrier so that the flow of communication, it doesn't stop, but it's all kind of backed up. And so you don't have access to that because you can't hear it over the noise of your mind. Now, we're not telling you don't use logic. We're not saying don't use your brain. We're just saying you're probably already really good at that. We don't need to tell you how to do that. We're going to help you lift that muscle, work that muscle that's been atrophied. So now you have a balance set so you can use both of those skills moving forward in all decisions.
I wouldn't even call it backed up, because you just described it as intuition can get backed up. I would call it as drowned out. Like the fear and the mental processes are so loud that you can't hear or feel or sense the intuitive knowing that's happening to you.
It's like someone's whispering and someone else is yelling, and you don't even know that anyone's whispering because the yelling is so loud, but it's still there.
I mean, for some of us, it's like someone's whispering at a rave. You know?
Yes.
It's not just like one person is whispering and one person is yelling. It's like a whole crowd of people, and their EDM is like boom, boom, boom. And like you just can't hear it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to try to turn down the volume on your mental overthinking and fear, which fear is a product of the mind. It's a product of the most base monkey mind part of your brain. So I'm going to kind of go back and forth between synonymously referring to like your mind and your logic and your fear is all kind of the same thing.
Yes.
For the purposes of this conversation, they're all going on in the same place, and your intuition is happening somewhere else.
Okay. So step 1 of how you can start to lower the noise on that mental process and increase the volume of your intuition, you have to create space in your life. Mm-hmm. If you are really, really busy, if you are overthinking everything and kind of frantic and stressed, you are always crowding out that whispering voice. You're never hearing it. It's not that it's not there. You might think, I don't have a strong intuition.
No, you do. Everyone has an intuition.
But all that means is you have not created the space in order to allow it to come through. So we're going to talk about some ways that you can create space. Mm-hmm. One of them is you've got to go on an information and or advice detox.
Yes.
Stop getting everyone else's thoughts and ideas out of your brain so you can actually access your own intuitive feelings about things.
So I've been working with one of my clients. Like, this is ultimately why she decided to come back and work with me a second or third time. I don't know. We've coached together before. But this time it was just for this purpose of helping her get clear on what her intuition is trying to tell her and how to listen to it. And the first thing I asked, one of the first things I asked her, if not the first thing, was, how often are you going to other people or Google when you have a question? And she was like, 100% of the time, almost.
All of us are.
Of the time. To the point where, she's going to laugh, but you know I love you, and I'm saying this out of love. She literally Googled, how to tell my parents that I'm moving in with my boyfriend. I'm like, that is such a niche question. And do you really think that the people on the internet are going to have a better answer for you than you?
Right, who don't know your parents, right? Who don't know your situation.
She's laughing at, right. If she's listening, she's laughing at this too.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking of how many people find us by Googling, how do I find my passion? Or how do I figure out what to do with my life?
Which is a slightly more broad question, so
sure.
I can understand that. And they're maybe just looking for somewhere to start.
Right. But I'm laughing because I know you guys are relating, like, ooh.
Yeah, I do that.
Yeah,
We've all done that.
When I'm in a little bit of a crisis mode, I put it into Google and see what I can find. Mm-hmm. Which, okay, yeah. But also, there's a part of you that already has at least a starting point, if not a full answer, a starting point to answer that question. But if you go straight to Google, or if you go straight to asking everyone in your inner circle what they think you should do, you're crowding out that voice. You don't have access to your own inner wisdom.
Yeah.
And my rule of thumb is start inside. You can always go outside and get ideas and then run them through your internal filter.
Yeah.
But start by giving yourself some quiet space to see if any answers come to you before you go out into the world.
Well, what I'll also say is the more you develop your intuition, the easier it is to dismiss noise. Yeah. And so at first, you need to really, really tune down the noise so that you can learn how to even access your intuition, what your intuition even shows up like, because not everyone experiences it the same way. And you have to kind of get to know yourself and your intuitive patterns before you can then, ask anyone else for feedback or go to Google. Because if Googling something is going to send you into a crisis or a spiral because you're not going to know what to do with that information when you get it, that's a problem. If you're really intuitive and you Google something because you're curious how other people have handled something, and you can scan through the options and go, no, not for me. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, but you have to get to the point where you're strong enough intuitively to be able to do that without spiraling into a complete doubt angst situation,
Yes.
So, okay, also this includes unsubscribing from things. So noise, asking people for advice is not always literal. It could be podcasts. Sorry. You can unsubscribe to us if you think that we're just noise. I tend to think that we're not, because we're probably one of the only podcasts that are actually encouraging you to listen to yourself rather than the
telling
people
you
who are
what
just
to do.
Talking to you. But yet, unsubscribe from newsletters and podcasts and things that are only triggering you into overthinking, or that you're overly relying on to tell you what to do instead of first consulting yourself.
I hear this so much, especially from my clients who are starting a new business. They think, well, I don't know what to do. So they subscribe to every business expert on the planet who all has a different set of advice
Oh my God,
for
you
how
can't
to
find the
become an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And then they feel like they have to do everything, and then they have no internal guidance for what they want to do. Now, this applies to all kind of things in life. I just see this a lot in the entrepreneurial space.
Well, we're in that space, and we see it a lot in our clients. Totally. Yeah.
So there's a way of educating yourself, but you have to give yourself that space to go inward first. So another big thing that gets in the way is technology. Particularly your phone.
Your phone.
If you go to your phone every time you have a quiet moment, you're standing in line, or you're at a stoplight, God forbid, or you just have a few minutes to spare.
Or you're doing the dreaded, I'm on Netflix and I'm scrolling through my phone, which is a doubly bad thing to be doing.
Then you're not giving your intuition even a moment to come through, because every single moment is occupied. This also goes with compulsively checking email, compulsively checking social media. It could be on your computer, on whatever device you're using. If your brain is always looking at some kind of a device at any time it's not working, then you don't have any down moments. And that is when your intuition comes to you most easily. This is why people have shower ideas. Right. Because that might be the only time in the day when you're not looking at something.
So this day and age, people listen to podcasts in the shower through their sound systems.
That's true.
They also, I saw this somewhere, probably on a post that was making fun of these people, so I hope you're not one of them, but there was a shower curtain that had like plastic transparent pockets that you could put your devices in.
Oh no.
So that you could just never be away from your phone.
Oh no.
Right, you got that watches now that are so that is noise. That is huge noise. And if you want more about this, we had an episode a year ago with Kristen Kalp. It's called I think it's called Breaking Your Phone Addiction. I'll link to that and tell you what episode number it is in the episode description if you want to scroll back. I think it was May 2018, something like that. So it was a while ago. But we had a whole hour-long conversation with her about ways that you can decrease the number of hours you spend on your phone. And part of it, I think, is just tracking the number of minutes and hours and setting time limits. So I set time limits for myself on Instagram every day. I go over it sometimes, but it does tell me when I've gone over it, and then I feel guilty. So it kind of works. But yeah, like making an effort to learn to sit with yourself and just have thoughts and ideas. If you are constantly distracting your mind with something, there's not a lot of space for new ideas and inspiration and nudges to happen. Mm-hmm. You have to build in some quiet time, some downtime, some time to be bored.
Which... for some people, might be meditation. That's the whole point of it, is to quiet your mind.
Guys, I know you hate this, but it's literally one of the best ways to build your intuitive muscle.
Keep in mind, there's a million types of meditation.
Yeah.
If you like just sitting or lying down and focusing on your breath and that works for you, great. If that makes you crazy, you don't have to do it that way. You can find some guided meditations where people actually walk you through maybe a visualization or something, and you get to allow your mind to wander a bit. Maybe you like to go for a walk outside in nature, but you just don't bring any podcasts, or you don't talk to anyone on the phone. It's just you doing a repetitive kind of a motion like walking. That can be a meditative experience. So we're not saying you have to sit on a cushion and say Om over and over again if you hate it. But
you can lay down.
Some kind of meditative activity is really, really good for your intuition.
I mean, there's no better way. It is
That's
mental.
The point
it
of
is intuitive workout. They scan people's brains who've been meditating every day for 20 or 30 years, and they have the brain of a 20-year-old, even though they're 50. It is excellent for your brain. I've been trying to do it for the past few weeks. I've gotten back into it, probably 10 to 20 minutes a day, rarely longer than that. Sometimes randomly throughout the day, sometimes right before bed, which helps you relax and fall asleep. And it does help, guys. It really is like taking a vitamin for your soul, I think. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to feel pressured to do it right. My brain is wandering most of the time. Mm-hmm. And I just bring it back whenever I realize that I've been wandering. It's not that big of a deal. That's why in Eat, Pray, Love, Liz Gilbert talks about the reason that they often have mantras that you repeat while you're meditating is because it gives the monkey in your mind something to do. It's like sort
Yeah.
these buttons from this pile to that pile instead
Right.
of just telling the monkey to sit in the corner and do nothing, which is impossible. It gives the monkey something to focus on so that the rest of you can relax.
Yes. You made a point. I wasn't thinking about talking about this, but you mentioned that meditation can help you fall asleep, which also made me think that sometimes your intuition can come through in a dream.
Yeah.
So you could keep a dream journal, or you could try to remember your dream for the first 30 seconds of being awake. And a lot of times it's just going to be silly stuff or just a repetition of your last day's experience. But sometimes there's a message inside of that dream if you pay attention, and that might be your intuition's easiest way to get to you, because if you're busy and mentally occupied all day, when you're unconscious, it's like, all right, this might be the best shot I've got at getting through to you. So that can be another way to access your intuition.
Okay, so I'm just keeping on the train of ways to turn
We're gonna
down
give
the
you
noise.
a bunch of choices.
Turn down the noise and then turn up your ability to hear yourself. One is journaling. Not even about anything in particular, just writing down how you're feeling even. Again, in that episode we did with Joanna Platt called Emotional Constipation, back in April, I think, 2018, she talks about morning pages, which is an exercise where you literally just write down however you're feeling and whatever you're thinking and just kind of getting it all out, venting even, for like a few minutes, 15 minutes or something, 10 minutes every morning. And you don't even go back and read it. You're just literally like doing a mind dump. Or you can do what, again, I just re-listened to Eat, Pray, Love, which is such a good book. And hearing Liz say it was even more fun. I mean, it was literally the 4th time I have consumed that book.
But the audiobook is a different feel.
It was a different experience. But she's in the habit in that book of just telling herself, I'm really scared about this, and then letting herself respond, like letting her wise self respond and comfort her, and maybe not tell her what to do if herself doesn't know what to do, but just try to calm her feelings and just try to make her feel seen and heard and understood. So you can have a conversation with yourself. That can be a part of journaling that helps you not go to other people. Like first, maybe ask yourself for some guidance or some love or support.
Yeah. I've done that in journaling. Journaling works really well for me. It really suits my I don't know, mental processing. And sometimes I'll ask myself a question. I'll write it down and say, what should I do in this situation? Or what do I think about this? And then give myself time to actually answer the question. Because so often you're just asking yourself those questions all day long, but you're just stressing about the questions and then moving on to the next thing. You don't actually give yourself space to answer it. I know for you, you have actually spoken out loud and recorded yourself
and then listen back to it.
Your questions in an out loud conversation with yourself.
Not even answered it so much as just had a conversation or just
so if you
vented
hate writing,
and then gone back and listened to it, and that's always really different perspective than when you were saying it. So yes, if you don't want to write, you can talk aloud to yourself, which again prevents you from always running first to someone else. Okay, we already mentioned this, but again, getting out in nature without any distractions is huge.
Right. You could combine this. This could be walking, like I said before, or you could just take a journal. You could do journaling.
You don't have to
outside.
be moving. You can just be sitting.
You meditate
outside.
But there's something about being outside that does help ground you and help just clear a lot of the distractions of day-to-day life. If you're in your house, your laundry might be screaming at you to do it, or your inbox is screaming at you. When you're outside, there's just a little bit more of a mental peace of mind.
And that's not just like a fluffy distraction. There is, and again, I can't quote it at you, but I know that there is scientific proof that humans need to be in nature. I mean, obviously, we didn't used to even live inside. So we are very much hardwired to be soothed by nature. I think like when humans listen to like bird sound, it's like their stress level decreases by huge percentages because it's just being outside or even simulating being outside is very much relaxing. And anything that relaxes you is a way to get your intuition louder and your stress and therefore your mental your mental processes, your monkey mind, from just slowing down and quieting. So anything that relaxes you that we're not talking about counts. Yep. Also, exercise.
Yes.
I mean, I know not all of you are going to love that suggestion. I mean, it's not my favorite suggestion either. But
it makes sense for a few reasons, though. First of all, exercise is often meditative in nature. It's repetitive motion that you're putting your body through. But also, we said before, your intuition lives in your body, not in your mind. And so exercise gets you into your body, so you're more aware of bodily sensations, which is often how you feel your feelings, which might be giving you intuitive messages.
Yeah.
So for a lot of different reasons.
Also, it's just giving you endorphins.
Right, exactly. And often you might be exercising while listening to something, but often you're just moving your body and you're not as distracted as if you're on the computer or watching a show or something like that.
I think the same as being in the shower. I think that the reason the shower works is because you're doing repetitive motions that you don't have to think about, and you're not really distracting your mind with anything else. So your mind and your feelings and everything's kind of free to wander. And I think the same thing can happen when you're exercising. You're doing something physically rote, but the rest of you gets to just kind of like la da da. That helps.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Also, getting into some kind of a creative feeling of flow. So that can look so many different ways.
Yeah.
But you have had that experience, I know you have, of being so involved in something that you just lose track of time. You're focused on something, your creative energies are really juiced up, and you're so in it that you can look at the clock and be like, oh my God, 4 hours passed? I need to go pee. I need to go eat. Like, I have been so absorbed in this. So if that for you is writing, if that for you is painting, if it's just taking one of those adult coloring books,
sidewalk talk,
and something that for you is
knitting,
creative in nature and gets
Pinterest
you out of your
even.
head. Yeah,
though
sure.
that's digital. I mean, I prefer it to be more hands-on, but I would even count that.
Sure.
If it really like just lights
collaging.
you up. Yeah, right.
Making a vision board. Some people are into that.
Anything that gets you in a state of just creative flow, and it doesn't have to be good, okay? It doesn't, there's no point to it. Please listen to our bonus book club episode about, again, to bring up Liz Gilbert for the umpteenth time, Big Magic, which I will link to it. That was from last summer. I think it was May or June. I mean, it was probably a year ago now that we did that episode. It was our first bonus book club that we ever did. And she makes such a good point in that whole book about the relationship between, honestly, intuition and fear. I mean, what she calls creative living, what she's really saying is how to invite your inspiration and your intuition into your life and then channel it to create things.
Yeah.
And she talks about the point of it is not to be good. The point of it is to bring you joy and to let inspiration flow. And so if you're sitting down and you can't get into the creative flow because you're beating yourself up, you're doing it wrong.
If you're a creative person, you have to read this book. And if you don't think you're a creative person, you especially have to read this book.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I give this as a homework assignment to all humans. But I know some of you out there are like, yeah, well, I don't really have any, like, I'm not super creative, or I don't really have like a creative outlet. Please read this book. You will realize that you have a lot of creativity within you, but you might have been putting a lot of pressure on it showing up a certain way. That's not the point. The point is to get into flow where your intuition can speak to you much more easily.
Okay. The last major way to turn down the noise, turn up the volume on your intuition, is by getting good at feeling your feelings. We mentioned that episode with Joanna Platt before, emotional constipation. That's a great place to start if you need more on this topic. But here's the thing, because intuition shows up in your body and just in the form of, can be gut sensations, can be in the form of just feeling attracted to something and you don't know why. It can show up as a sense of just knowing without knowing how you know. Either way, if you don't understand, or if you've blocked your ability to feel almost anything, you're not going to be able to feel your intuition.
Nope.
So you have to get good at having feelings in order to sense your intuition and to even recognize it when it shows up.
Right. Both your feelings and your intuition live in your body. So they communicate a lot. Your brain is the logical part. So most of us live up here in our headspace most of the time. if you get down into your body, then you might feel an aversion to you might meet someone and be like, I don't know what it is, but I just get all weirdly knotted up in my stomach.
And your mind is the one second guessing that, saying,
Yes.
but they're a nice person. Then it turns out they're a sociopath.
Or an energy vampire. So you have to be able to feel your feelings to be able to access your intuition.
Yes.
They're very intricately tied.
Yes. So if you are emotionally constipated, that is a huge, huge problem. It is one of the things most blocking you from your ability to feel your intuition or to sense it at all.
Yep.
So you have to get good at expressing yourself. You have to get good at letting yourself have a full range of emotions, from grief to joy. You have to get good at letting it kind of happen, like having feelings that flow in and then you have them and then they flow back out, and you're not trying to suppress it as it's happening. You're not thinking it's wrong to feel how you feel. There is so much that goes into emotional constipation. So we have a whole episode about that you can go back and listen to. But emotionally constipated people are not intuitive people. Just, that's it. You can't be both of those at the same time. So if you want to, honestly, if you want to literally unclog the problem, if you want to start flowing again, like you have to let your feelings flow so that your intuition can flow.
Yep.
They're so tied up.
Yep.
Okay. So we're going to transition into, so those were some of our best kind of, I hate to say tips because that makes it sound so trite, but tips, strategies, ways, various options you have for turning down the volume on your mental mind, your fear, your logic, and turning up the volume on your feelings and your intuition. So related but a little bit different is, once you have created some sort of a regular and consistent routine where you create that space, so you're meditating regularly or you're doing something creative regularly. Hopefully you're doing more than one of these things regularly. You've put some limits on your screen time. You've not carried your phone around with you and checked it at every stoplight you sit at, right?
You've unsubscribed from a bunch of emails.
Yes, you've stopped going to Google every time you have a random question, or your mom every time you have a question about the littlest thing. Once you've started to do that, then let's talk about the next thing, which is how can you then build your intuition? So first, we have to talk about how to even let it flow in the first place. But how do you then really actually start working on it and building it and recognizing it? Because, and I promise I'm going to stop talking in a second, but this is such a problem, I think, because I think that once people start letting their intuition flow, or they start kind of turning on the faucet a little bit, they expect a flood of information.
Nope.
And it doesn't start like that. Intuition is something you have to build a relationship with. So if you would go out on a first date with someone and then expect them to propose to you on the second date, you crazy, first of all. Second of all, that's kind of what we expect out of our intuition. And it's not like that. You have to build a relationship of trust. You have to, brick by brick, build something with someone in order to get to the point where that's a healthy and appropriate step. Well, and I think the same thing is true with your intuition.
Yeah, just like the person who proposes to you on a second date, you would be like, that person also crazy. That's not cool. I'm freaked out. Run away. If your intuition just came in like a freight train, you would not trust it. You'd be like, where is this coming from? I don't know if I believe this.
Right. You'd be threatening to burn yourself as a witch.
Exactly.
Really.
Exactly.
Right?
So it's a two-way street. You have to trust your intuition, but your intuition has to trust that you're going to actually take it seriously. Yeah. So it's going to start small. And that's
little
okay.
trickles, little things that you think are seemingly unimportant. That's where we start.
Yep.
That is where I start with my clients too, is we start with things that don't matter. For example, this is an example that was in the Energy Vampires book, which we just did a bonus book club episode about a couple weeks ago. But Christian Northrup, the author, Dr. Northrup, said that one of her best strategies for building your intuition is to just keep a gut instincts journal, a log. Hers was more about in relationship to people that you meet, but I think this can be expanded to mean just about anything. So just random gut sensations that you can't even explain, or just things that you're like, I don't know why I feel like this is true, but honestly, I used to do this with celebrity babies. The gender.
You're very good at that. At
I had a
predicting that.
90% success rate, okay? Which is pretty damn good.
That's good.
Why does that matter? Do I need to know? Do I need to be like the Miss Cleo of celebrity baby genders? No one cares. But I actually kept a log to see how accurate I was. And I was way more than 50-50. I was like 90th percentile accurate about that. Why?
Which means there's
Intuitively,
more than chance going on there.
I was just picking up on some energy. I don't know, man. I can't explain it. You don't have to be able to explain it.
Well, I'll also say that makes sense because it's often things that you don't have a lot of weight around, you don't have a lot of resistance.
I have no attachment to what gender like Tina Fey's baby was in 2007 or whatever.
So your intuitive impulses feel a little bit easier and clearer.
Yeah.
When it's like, what do I do with my whole life? You're not going to be able to help but stop your mental mind from coming in and clouding up the whole works.
Yeah.
But with smaller things, you're like, well, all right, if I feel like taking a left at this turn instead of taking a right like I normally do to go to work, let's just see what that's about. No big deal. Mm-hmm. If I had ended up just going a different route, cool. But maybe I run into someone, or maybe I see a store that I'd never seen before. Yeah. So those little impulses, we want you to start capturing those. And what's cool about that is some of them you'll never get any insight into why you got that gut feeling, but some of them you will. Some of them you can go back and say, I had a weird sense about this, and then I learned more information later, which confirmed that my gut feeling
was right.
Had some merit to it. Yeah. And when that happens, you're going to start trusting those feelings and those intuitions more and more because they're not so random. And then the ones that you don't get a response to, you'll start to trust there was a reason, I just never learned it.
So I think one of the biggest misconceptions about intuition in general is that it only is there to be like the voice of God parting the heavens, booming in a really, deep voice saying like, you shall not pass. I'm sorry, I know that's a Lord of the Rings thing, not a God thing. But still, that's how we think the intuition shows up. The intuition is actually just here to help you find the path of least resistance in every area of your life. It's just here to help you find inspiration, find a sense of ease, find alignment with yourself. So it can be teeny little things, and that counts just as much as the big stuff. So for example, the other day, I was walking the dog, and I just had this weird impulse that I should go cut behind some townhouses instead of stay on the path. And I never do that. I never go that way. And I was just like, feeling a little nudge, and I was like, okay, well, sure, the dog likes a shortcut because she hates walking in the summer. So she was fine with that. And then so I get back on the path, because I've basically just taken a shortcut and gotten back on a path at a later point. I look back, and there's a truck coming down the path, which cars shouldn't be driving on it, but it's the truck that comes and collects all the trash out of the trash cans like twice a week. And so if I had stayed on the path, it's not like I would have gotten run over by the truck. I would have just had to...
It would have been inconvenient.
I would have had to inconvenience myself by getting off the path and letting them pass me, and then the dog would probably have barked at them. So the universe just very gently rerouted me. And that's it. There was no grand life purpose to that. I didn't then meet my soulmate. Okay? I just avoided a slight, teeny tiny inconvenience. But intuition can show up like that too. Why not? Why not make my life a little bit easier that day?
Sure.
Right. So, let's talk about probably the biggest way to develop your intuition, which is you have to develop a relationship with something bigger than yourself. You can call it the universe. You can call it God if you want to.
You can call it life.
You can call it life.
Call it your higher self.
You can call it whatever you want.
Any deity, any word,
Doesn't matter.
Sound you want to call it. But in order for you to trust that you're getting clear messages from something wiser than you, you have to believe there's something wiser than you.
You have to believe in some form of infinite intelligence, because otherwise intuition doesn't really work. Otherwise intuition is just you. And no one really trusts themselves that much. You shouldn't trust yourself that much. And what I mean by that is your mind should not be the arbiter of the universe. You shouldn't be the one deciding how things work or trying to figure out what to do. If you believe in some kind of higher power, some sort of infinite intelligence, that you have access to. That's what intuition is. Intuition is your connection, is your bat phone from you to the universe. So that's what Kristen and I like to call it. You can call it whatever you want. And so if you have an underdeveloped sense of trust in the universe, that is a huge reason, maybe the reason, why you don't have a good sense of intuition, or why your intuition is blocked, is because you're relying too much on your own powers of perception and mental prowess, and not enough on that which knows everything.
We did a podcast episode called Outrageous Openness. That's the name of the book. It was a bonus book club.
Outrageous Openness, November 2018.
Okay, I knew you would. I never do. And that's the whole point of that book. It's becoming outrageously open to universal signs, to God's wisdom, to whatever you want to call that spiritual force that knows way more than you, that is giving you that guidance through the form of your intuition every moment of every day. And so if you need some inspiration and some insights and maybe some examples of how it can show up, that book is fantastic for that. So listen to our podcast episode about it and go get the book if you want to.
And then what I really like people to do after they've read that book, and once they're really like kicking it into high gear with their intuition, is like keeping a gut instincts log. This is related but slightly different. Keep a log of the signs and the synchronicities and the seemingly random but totally non-coincidental things that are happening, because that counts as intuition. Intuition is your own feelings and nudges, but it's also the things outside of you. And I actually think that's a really huge point that I just realized I had to clarify for my client, the one who we're really actively working on this, is that she only thought intuition was her own thoughts and her own nudges. She didn't realize that intuition is also random signs you're seeing. But here's the thing, if you're perceiving it, it's all you. It doesn't matter if you're perceiving it within yourself or externally, you're still the perceiver, which means intuition can have any number of infinite pathways to find you, and it's no less relevant or no less specific when it's a sign that's not, showing up as like a gut feeling in your own body. If it's a car that drives by, that's just as relevant.
Right, and it can be external signs like license plates, like cars, like messages you're seeing.
Songs on the radio.
Anything like that. It can also be just little sparks of insight. I've had moments where I've been in a yoga class or meditating or in the shower, and I'll get, I could write a blog about this. And then I'll sit down and go capture that. And as I'm capturing it, it's like the floodgates open. This doesn't happen every time. But when it does, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, here's an idea. And then the whole idea almost like spills out of me. But if I'm not capturing it, then I didn't open up the gate to let it flow.
Yeah.
So if you're capturing these ideas, maybe you have the notes tab of your phone, maybe you have a little notebook that you carry in your purse or in your pocket, but a place where you can capture them as you are experiencing them, then you might actually open up space for more insight and more ideas to flow just by the capture.
That's a good point. And that is something that I've told other clients in the past is, don't ignore your inspiration and your nudges when they're happening, because then you're not inviting them to continue flowing. So respect the things that happen, like respect the inspiration that flows and the ideas that come by recording them. And doesn't mean you have to do anything with them. I think people think that unless I can go write this right now, then it doesn't count. Or they think that, I'm never going to be a best-selling author. Why would I even bother to write this idea down? Write it down, bitch. Yes. Figure that part out later. Don't let a great idea pass you by because your mind is poo-pooing it as it happens. Like, respect your ideas enough to just not judge them and write them down. And then if it flows, it flows. And if you lose it, it's fine. Yep. It's fine. You're not going to, most of your ideas, most of your intuitive hits, you're not necessarily going to do anything with. That's not the point. So
but the real-time capturing is really important. I actually will have clients, especially in something really important like a job interview. This would work on a date. This might work. Any experience when you're going out into the world and trying to evaluate, is something for me? As soon as you get out of that thing, jot down how you're feeling. Because
not like, how do I think I did?
No. Not performance. This is all about
how do I feel about what just happened.
Exactly. Because what will invariably every time happen is if you give it 24, 48 hours a week,
the mind is just,
you'll go back and you will rewrite the whole experience with your mind, and you will not have access to how you felt in that intuitive response in that moment. Capture it in the moment, then go back. You're not going to be able to argue with yourself because you wrote it down. It really, really helps.
So let's wrap this up by talking about the difference between fear and intuition, because I get this question all of the time, and it's something I very much struggled with, and I think to a degree still do, but rarely. Like now I can call myself out really quickly. I know the difference. So here's the thing. Again, fear is a mental process, and it relies on logic a lot of the time and panic to fuel its fires. So you can recognize when you're in a fear state, not an intuitive state, when your mind is going a mile a minute.
Yep.
You're anxious, you're panicked, you're really
feeling
foggy.
Bad about yourself.
You're speaking really negatively about yourself. You're self-shaming. You're berating yourself. You're feeling morose. You're feeling like Eeyore.
You're complaining about other things.
You're resentful of other people and yourself.
Yep.
So that kind of like just blanket meanness and negativity is not your intuition, okay? Your intuition can be very tough loving, because sometimes your intuition is going to pipe up and say, hey, that's not for you. Not like you should go do that. Sometimes it's going to say, don't do that. But here's the thing. I don't think your intuition is ever trying to full out stop you from doing something the way your fear is. So if you are maybe trying to start a business and you're really excited about it, but you're also terrified, because that's what happens when you start a business, it's scary. Your fear is going to tell you, don't do that thing. You're going to end up homeless. You're going to end up broke. No one's going to like you. What kind of idiot would even do that? It's just going to try to say anything it can to actually get you to stop doing it. Your intuition is never going to try to stop you. Your intuition might say,
proceed with caution.
Proceed with caution. Or give you a little bit of tough love and say, okay, what about this? Have you considered this? But it's going to be calm. It's not going to be going a mile a minute. It's going to be the voice of your toughest, wisest inner grandparent. It's not going to be a mean, like, mile a minute, loud-mouthed bully. That's not what your intuition sounds like.
I will give you an example of this. This is from years ago, but I actually had an experience. You said intuition is not a booming God voice, but I did actually have a voice that was in my head. It was my voice, but it felt almost like slightly disembodied. I knew it was not
just
my mental mind.
Just like Liz Gilbert in Eat, Pray, Love, telling herself, go back to bed.
Yeah. Go back to bed. Yeah, this was years ago, and I was dating some guy just for like a few weeks or something, and we were going on a walk somewhere together, and I just had this quiet voice in my head that said, this is not your person. It wasn't, run away, this is terrible, or end this right now. It was just like,
nor was it you going, oh my God, is this my person? Is this my person? Is this my person? Is this my person? Oh, what if he's my person? What if he's not my person? Should I get married? I don't know. I don't even met him. Like,
right.
It wasn't that.
It was just this calm, this is not your, like, you don't have to do anything about it right now. And I didn't do anything about it right away.
Well, actually, she did make a big mistake, which is she told me about that, and then she did nothing about it. Oh yeah. No. Don't tell me what your intuition is saying if you don't want me to then be like, why are you doing about that? Why are you doing about that? Why are you still dating that guy?
Right. But again, there was this calming. It was like,
it had a lot of a lot of patience, right?
Go ahead if you want to.
And it wasn't judging you. It was just saying, hey,
it's not your person.
I'm just here to tell you that's not it.
Right. If you want to keep going on some dates, whatever. That's fine.
It wasn't being mean to you.
It was not being mean.
Had
it was
kindness.
Not being mean to him.
I think patience is a big thing.
Yeah.
Your intuition is very patient but insistent.
Yep.
Insistent but patient. And fear is both insistent and impatient, right? And it's more than just insistent. It's loud and it's obnoxious and it's just tireless in its desire to get you to stop doing something.
And it feels very frantic and scary in your body.
Yeah. So again, intuition won't try to totally shut you down. It will encourage you to take small steps if necessary. It'll help you try to reroute and find new ways to do something, but it's never going to try to get you to just shut up and sit down and do nothing. Mm-hmm. That's not what it's going to do.
Nope.
Right. Which is why it's so important to turn down the volume on fear and up on intuition, because intuition is not as loud as fear. It just isn't most of the time.
It's just a calmer, more patient voice.
Yeah.
Versus the temper tantrum throwing, freaked out toddler that is your fear. That the screeching toddler is always going to be a lot louder than the old quiet woman.
Yeah.
So you have to actively be trying to listen to the wise voice.
Yeah. Ultimately, it's this. If you're trying to think your way into an answer, you are using your mind, not your intuition. Mm-hmm. If you're trying to figure it out, if you're like, how am I going to do this? What am I going to do? How am I ever going to find the money for that? How is it ever going to work out? That's you trying to figure out a problem or find an answer using your mind. Intuition feels your way through. So when you develop a sense of trust with something like the universe, something larger than yourself, and you have this relationship, instead of saying, how am I going to figure this out? You start saying, I wonder how this is going to get figured out.
Or you might ask questions like, oh, well, would you help me figure out, or would you help guide me to the right next solution? Because I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
My limited human brain has no idea.
Yeah.
Please show me the way.
But you don't feel all of the onus of responsibility to figure out with your mind what the next step is and what you're supposed to be doing. You're waiting for a little bit of guidance. You're taking a pause. You're getting quiet so that you can hear. And when you do feel a nudge or a curiosity or even just like the slightest little pull in a direction, you can kind of calmly, if you're in intuitive mode, go explore that thing and then see, okay, the next sign, the next inspiration. Got to get quiet again and listen. Your intuition's not going to come through and tell you, here are steps 1 through 50. It's not going to do that. It's going to help you in piecemeal fashion, in a way that it knows you can handle, because you cannot handle steps 1 through 50. Okay? I think you want to. Your fear, that's what it wants. Your fear is not taking action until it has all 50 steps lined up ahead of it, because it's terrified of the unknown. The intuition is not terrified of the unknown.
Because it has that big picture. It knows exactly where you're going. And it knows right now all you need to focus on is this.
Yeah,
just
trust that if you do this one little thing, you get there, you listen in again, you clear the mind, you quiet. Eventually you will feel the tug towards something else, step 2. And that's how you build that relationship. You kind of do a tango with intuition. Will you always get it right? Nope. But you want to know what? You're going to learn from that, and having some mistakes and thinking you're listening to your intuition when you're actually listening to fear, it's not the worst thing that's ever going to happen to you.
Well, you have to do that sometimes to be able to really differentiate what it sounds like to you. Right. Because it's a little bit different for every person.
Yeah.
So that's okay if you get it wrong sometimes. The good news is your intuition is always there. So if you screw it up, that's fine. Just get quiet again and ask to be guided to the next thing.
It's not going to abandon you. It's not going anywhere.
It's going anywhere.
Part of you. You can't get rid of it, even if you try. Just like your fear, it's part of you. You can't get rid of it. So, okay. Now, we would love to hear how this resonated with you. If you have examples of intuition you want to share, we'd love to hear those in the comments, which we will link to in the episode description. And if maybe you didn't realize some of these were ways that you can open up your intuition, I would love to hear that. Like, oh, I didn't even realize that seeing a sign was a form of intuition, or journaling could be a form of intuition. Or if you're guilty of Googling and asking people for advice, it's totally okay to raise your hand and say, yeah, that was me.
Yeah, and also let us know which of these you're going to try in the next say, few days or week.
Yeah. So link in episode description to leave us a comment. And of course, as we're saying goodbye, I just want to remind you again, today's the last day to sign up, fill out the form. If you're really seriously interested in coaching and you want to get started within the next 4 to 6 weeks, then today's the last day to fill out the form, and then we'll get on the calendar in the next couple of weeks to talk to you about it.
And if you're watching this a little later, because I know not all of you get to it on the day of, and you're seriously interested in coaching, then go ahead and fill out a form for our wait list, and we will contact you as spots open up.
Yep. Okay. And if you're interested in our future people-pleasing course, again, you can get on the VIP list for that too in the episode description. And we'll be in touch soon-ish with more info about when and where and how and all of the good stuff about how we're going to be doling that out to you.
Yep.
So, okay. Happy listening to your intuition. Turn down the volume on fear. And let's just get the hell out of our own way. Okay?
Bye.
Bye.